again on my YouTube channel. Today we will be talking about the primary key differences between therapeutic recreation and occupational therapy. I had people coming and asking me if there are any similarities or if the job description is actually the same as occupational therapy, assuming that recreational therapists are actually occupational therapists. Yes, there are some similarities between these two fields. However, therapeutic recreation is slightly different than occupational therapy. It also uses the medical model, but also the social model in recreation and in recovery, using recreation as recovery method. Recreational therapy is different than occupational therapy because occupational therapy focuses only on the medical model aspect of treatment. That means using certain activities in order to help that person gain and recuperate in certain daily tasks, activities such as eating, drinking, walking, speaking, and they're using a variety of actions within the medical field to help that person to regain some daily functions and to get back onto the sort of saying, not, I wouldn't use normal because normal is a very how should I say it? It's a very broad word. Every normal is different for every person. But to make it in a more nicer way, I would say it to make it to an optimal functional level. Optimal, it can be applicable to every single person. What optimal for me, it might not be optimal for you and vice versa. So, considering these aspects, I would like to take a little bit of time and to speak a little bit about these primary focuses and goals. So as I mentioned before, occupational therapy focuses mainly on independence in daily life activities, focusing mainly on occupation due to impairments. Therapeutic recreation, on the other hand, focuses more on improving the overall quality of life, well-being, and leisure functioning using recreation as leisure and as therapy. The scope of practices. Scope of practices is slightly different between the two fields. Occupational therapies is often more medical and rehabilitative, addressing functioning limitations, impairing daily life occupations, while therapeutic recreation scope is way broader than this. This encompasses the well-being, as I mentioned before, leisure, recreation, and can be also used in various settings beyond just the medical setting. Approach of activities. Occupational therapy has a different approach than recreational therapists. Occupational therapy basically analyzes the activity for their components related to functioning and performance skills, while therapeutic recreation is basically analyzing each activity for the recreational and leisure potential and how these activities can contribute to well-being and also the social, physical, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual domains. When it comes about the outcome measurements, occupational therapies often measure functional based on outcomes. It's basically they're associating progress with independence. The more independent you become, that means you made some progress. If you're less independent, that means you are regressing or you're stagnating within the period of recovery. Therapeutic recreation, or TR, on the other hand, it's measuring the quality of life, leisure satisfactions, social participation, and well-being. So probably you could figure it out that recreational therapy also uses a little bit of the medical model, but put a lot of accent more onto the social approach for therapeutic purposes. Basically, what they're saying here is occupational therapy is focused mainly on the medical model, while therapeutic recreation is focused mainly on social and community basically approach. So let me give you some examples to make it everything a little bit more concise, and so you can figure it out a little bit much better in your images regarding these two domains. When somebody is coming and asking regarding the differences between therapeutic recreation and occupational therapy, specifically in the context of daily tasks activity, as I mentioned before, using daily equipment, and for activities like eating, dressing, drawing, the user also points out that therapeutic recreation is actually more of a holistic approach. It's not focused just on the specific activity. As an example, learning to grab a pen again and starting eventually to use the skills to start learning the writing process. Therapeutic recreation is using a little bit of a different approach. They're using a different approach, what I'm saying, in the fact that basically they're using other styles of activity, not necessarily the medical aspect, but recreational. So for example, going outside and going for a walk. While on a walk, that person starts to probably collect some leaves. That's an approach. Or while being very stressed out, a person can do some arts and crafts to start distressing and take their mind off their daily problems. So you see a little bit the differences here. Occupational therapy, its focus on occupation and function. As I said before, the primary goal of occupational therapy is to improve a person's ability to participate in daily life activities, such as, which are called occupations. That's why it's called occupational therapy, because daily life's activities are associated with occupations. This can include like going to an office and working on a computer. Occupational therapy would take care of that aspect, learning, helping that person to learn again the process of actually going in the office, learning the routine of being in the office, start typing. But the typing aspect comes a little bit later in the process of recovery, while recreational therapy uses kind of a similar approach. However, the recreational therapy, it's not basically that focused on results, but for us as recreational therapists, more important is the process that the person is having in this journey of recovery, or not necessarily recovery, but to reach that point of well-being, sort of saying. And as I said, this journey of well-being can be different for everybody. My well-being can be different than your well-being, and these activities have to be tailored specifically to each domain of a person. So in this aspect, there are very, very important steps that you have to take in consideration. Probably you have learned so far in the program that there are certain steps that you have to implement in order to have some progress with people in recreational therapy. So first things first, there is the assessment aspect. The assessment aspect, it implies where you actually go into the setting, you're looking from an outsider, and you're evaluating what has to be done with the certain specific target population. Planning. Then you're coming in the office or whatever you're working, and you're starting to put a plan into action. Start grabbing ideas from wherever you can, trying to fit the plan within the necessities of activities. Implementation. Implementation refers after you gather the information and you create the plan, then you start implementing the plan that you created. You might notice that the plan might work sometime. However, other times you might find out that you have to tailor the program. You might have to adjust some activities, or you might realize after a certain period of time, like, oh, this activity, this plan really doesn't work whatsoever. So I have to scratch everything and start from zero. That's not regress. Yes, some people are call it as regression. However, I would like to call this one as progress, or sometimes probably stagnation, because what you're actually trying to do here, you're focusing also on the process, as I mentioned before, but you're not neglecting the final scope, the destination. So when you're planning an activity, you have to consider a lot of things in this process, and you might be able to recognize these things depending on your field that you're working. Implementation. Implementation refers to the process where you actually take the plan, you're applying it, and you are able to make adjustments in the plan. Cutting activities, adding activities, or whatever fits to the specific scenario. After implementation, it comes evaluation. After you set a certain period of time, which can be various from different case to case, then you come and you look at the results, and then you're evaluating the progresses, the regresses, what worked, what might not work, trying to find a better solution that fits your case even better. And the very last process is development. Development refers to the fact, like, after you had all that information that you created in a certain period of time, then you're developing a new plan, and you are able to do those activities with those people. They might have a different, like, they realize that actually through this whole journey that you're going with the clients, they might realize and actually enjoy the process, and they will realize, like, oh, now I understand why we did that, or now, see, in the beginning this thing didn't work, but now it works a different way because we took a different approach. So that's kind of the basics of the differences between occupational therapy and therapeutic recreation. If you want to find more about it, feel free to DM me in the comments, and I will be more than able to ask certain questions, and we're learning together. We are in this journey together. We're not all knowledgeable, so we are able to learn from each other. If you have any suggestions that you want to find more about it, please leave it in the comments, and also don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.